We're back with part 2 of our Creating Social Media Presence and Cultural Movements Interview 5 session. We're joined here with Whitney Knight. We're taking student questions, so we're going to jump right back into those. And let's take a question from Aaron, or perhaps 2 questions. Many of our students been working on follow-up questions.
This is Erin Manuel with week 5 video discussion, and this week I have a couple questions for Whitney Knight. My first question is, part of your job is reaching out to people who drop out of Mid-America. What does this process entail? What do you tell students who have reached their limit? And what percentage of students end up finishing their degree? And
okay, so tell us a little bit about this process. You unpacked it a little bit, the nurture campaign, but what kind of language do you use to appeal to those that drop out?
You know, Aaron, I'm really glad you touched on that. I'm a very emotional, touchy-feely person. As you can tell, I started trying to cry earlier already. So I really just try to use very encouraging language, and that's the statistics that I try to pull up. Again, I try to pull up things that are encouraging. So like this is one that I actually wrote a couple weeks ago, but actually I believe it's 1 in 3 learners now are adult learners who are over the age of, I believe, 40 or so. And so, you know, when you have adults who are wondering, like, you know, am I too old to go back to school? Or do I have time to go back to school? You know, what about my family? Am I going to be able to spend as much time with my family? Am I going to be able to spend as much time at my church helping out? Am I going to have to quit my job? It's those concerns that I really want to be able to help quell and to help reassure people. That's something that's really important to me. And just being able to reach out to people, even in an informal way. I mean, these emails, they're not signed with my name. They're really generic. You know, they come from MacU. One of the things that I do in those emails is they're usually maybe 5 to 6 paragraphs long at the most. They're nothing too major, but they're a little bit beefy, just so they can tell a story or get whatever point they need to come across. But one of the things I do is I actually don't make a hard sale until we're at the bottom of the email. I usually don't even drop MacU's name until that last paragraph, because I just really want to focus on the person and leave them with something that they can take away, even if they're not ready to enroll, even if they've moved on and they don't care about enrolling at MacU. Maybe they chose a different path, maybe they went to a different school, or they're in a position where they don't need to go back to school at that point. But if nothing else, I still want to leave them with something that might be seen as being beneficial to them.
Awesome. And let's hear, Aaron has a follow-up.
And my second question is, what advice do you have for students to become a better writer?
Oh, that's an awesome question.
All right. How can we become better writers?
Yeah, I think Garrett could tell that I kind of lit up at that question. I would say 2 things. Reading constantly. I am a huge reader, and you know, that can be kind of untraditional sometimes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a textbook. It doesn't even have to be a book at all, honestly. You know, find a genre you like. I really do like books, but I also like comic books. I like graphic novels and I like manga. And so even though that's not particularly like, you know, a written out book, it's still dialogue. It's still, you know, learning new things. Playing video games is something I enjoy. And, you know, sometimes I find words that I'm like, I want to add that to my vocabulary. So, you know, seeing how other writers construct things, whether it's in a book, whether it's in game dialogue, if you're somebody who likes movies or TV shows, you know, pay really close attention to how things are written, not just spoken dialogue, but also, you know, just the flow of the script, of, you know, the storyline, of the twists and turns that are in there. And then I would also say, you know, in addition to never stop reading, never stop writing either. One of my biggest things, even though, you know, I work here and I write a lot in whatever capacity, I also write for myself. I also like writing personal stories, and, you know, I like to do like a lot of fantasy stuff, and it's nothing major. It's nothing that's probably ever going to get published, but, you know, it's just something fun for me to do on the side. So even when I'm not at work, I'm writing a lot of the time. So just never stop.
This is great. This is great. This is reinforcing many of the things you all no doubt get sick of. But it would be an appropriate pause and plug for me to say, you know, sometimes students, and we encourage their you know, their outright honesty and of course feedback, but they can articulate a sense of being overwhelmed by the voluminous readings that we assign. You know, I think one of our strategic goals when we're going to revise and relaunch this degree was I don't want the students always hearing from a singular voice. Let's give them multiple perspectives to chew on. And it's okay not only to disagree with some of these voices, but you know, it's understanding that we're going to lean closer to some and further away from others.
Right.
What we're getting out of it is a saturation point, right? Our students are getting the exposure, and especially in accelerated courses, that's an opportunity to, if you didn't finish the book in the class, and we don't pick it back up in another course, you finish it on your own time. You've invested in this, right? It's an opportunity. So we give the students a lot to read over the course of the major, and our goal is that you're finding something to get passionate about. And there are classes even where we're encouraging alternative sort of stimulation to kind of keep those creative energies going and growing at that.
Yeah, I would say don't feel like you're locked into something that's even academic in nature. Find something you really like, whether, you know, it's sci-fi, whether it's fantasy, whether it's vampire books. It really doesn't matter, as long as it's something that gets your mind active and, you know, keeps you in that world of reading. I don't think there's anything wrong with it whatsoever. As Garrett mentioned, you know, it keeps the creative juices flowing, and you're always constantly thinking of new ideas once you're, you know, you're kind of learning from other people. Another thing I would recommend too, check out your local library. Here in Oklahoma City, I really like Southern Oaks Library. They really do some cool workshops sometimes. Sometimes they actually bring in some local smaller authors and kind of do like little panel sessions with them. So there's lots of ways you can learn that aren't just in a textbook.
Nice. I like that. And one of our students, as a matter of fact, works as a librarian.
That's
so,
awesome.
So it's great.
Awesome.
We're going to hear from her shortly.
Awesome.
But first, let's hear from Khalil.
Hello everyone, my name is Chloe Thompson, and I have some questions for Whitney Knight. My first question is, tell me more about the process of creating press releases. My second question is...
All right, tell us a little bit about this. Unpack
Awesome.
a press release for us.
So it's actually funny, Khalil. I'm really glad you asked about press releases, because that's something that I really have a lot of fun doing. I mentioned earlier I have my associate's degree in journalism, but the reason why I kind of steered away from journalism is because it can get really negative. You know, you turn on the news, it's always something dark and depressing, and I'm not that kind of person. I really like happy things, and I like exciting things, and again, encouraging people. So what I really like about press releases is, for the most part, you're usually talking about something exciting that's going on. Like, hey, we have this new course going on, or hey, Mackie got nominated for this award, or we're unveiling this building, or our basketball team won a national championship. It's always really positive things. So my process normally is, press releases don't tend to get quite as long as news stories do most of the time. So I'll normally find like maybe one person to interview for just a couple quick, impactful quotes. I try to do usually about 2 quotes, I would say, per press release. You know, press releases, they are a little bit more straightforward. It's not as much like writing a feature story. You do that first lead paragraph, and you just want to, you know, get the information out there right then and there, so that, you know, whatever news desk it comes across, they can be like, okay, this is what this is about. And maybe they'll dive a little bit deeper into it and publish it. And then if it doesn't interest them, they'll just move on. So that's why that first paragraph for a press release is super important, because they're busy, they're getting bombarded. You just want to be able to get it out there right now. This is what this is about, and then hopefully they'll be interested. But then, as I said, kind of try to keep them short. Always give some sort of follow-up source in case they do want to do more information, because sometimes you never know. It could be something they want to do a further story on, or they want more information on. So always have, you know, some sort of secondary source in there. But for the most part, you know, press releases, it's just that really strong opening paragraph. Get some quotes in there from somebody who's relevant to it, and keep it pretty short and concise.
Nice. Speaking of short and concise, let's jump into Khalil's next question.
Does reaching out to college dropouts have an impact on the community? If so, what type of impact? And my third question is...
All right, so is there any impact on community from reaching out to these college dropouts?
I would definitely think so. You know, if you have somebody, again, you don't know what their circumstances are, why maybe they kind of gave up on that dream. You know, for some people, again, it could be like a financial change, it could be a family change, maybe they lost somebody in the family, or a job situation changed. Sometimes people just get scared, and they might be like, oh my gosh, maybe I can't do this. So, you know, I think being able to reach out to somebody, and that is part of our market that we tap into sometimes, are people who maybe went to school, maybe right after high school, they went to college for a little bit, and then, you know, life happened and they weren't able to finish their degree. My own mom was like that. She went to college just really briefly, but she wasn't able to keep financing it, and so she dropped out pretty quickly. And so I think it's really important to be able to reach those people. You know, a college degree, it's so much more than just a pathway to a career or just a higher pay grade. And yeah, those things are really important, but you know, just being able to get out there, to be able to build your own personal network, to be able to build your own personal skills, it can be a really enlightening thing as well. And so I think as much as possible, being able to reach to those people, you know, who maybe didn't get a chance to go to college for whatever reason that is, if you can maybe help somebody find their way to a college education, it can truly be life-changing, and I think it's really important.
Nice. All right. It looks like Khalil snuck one more in.
Does social media presence have an impact on Mid-America Christian University? And I have a follow-up question, which is, what type of focus and dedication does it take to be award-winning? Thank you so much, Whitney Knight. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
All right.
Hey, thank you so much, Khalil. I hope you're having a great day too. I appreciate that.
So social media presence. How do you help enlarge MacU's social media presence?
So it's really something that I'm super proud of. Right when I came on, I think I mentioned earlier, this was my internship when I was in the comm program, and then it was actually able to transition, thank you, into a full-time position for me, which was a huge blessing. And one of the first things I got to work on was our social media accounts. And you know, before I think our Facebook had been at about 6,000 people. I would have to double check that number, don't quote me, but it was like at about 6,000, and we actually broke 16,000 just this past week. So that's 10,000 more followers on likes on Facebook just in the 3 years that I've been working here at MacU. Our Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts, those just naturally are a little bit slower to grow, but the biggest thing to me is we're just reaching so many more people with MacU. It's actually funny, I go back to this quote a lot, but a gentleman who used to work in our advancement department, he said to me once that, you know, once people find out about MacU, they fall in love with it. And to me, that's what social media is a path to. You know, this place is just something that I'm really passionate about, both when I was a student here and now that I have the blessing to be able to work here. You know, just being able to get the word out about MacU and let people know what we're doing, even if they're not interested in school right now, or even if they're not interested in school ever. I still think there's a lot that we offer to the community, and social media is an amazing way to accomplish that.
Absolutely. And it's intergenerational now, as we see. Well, speaking of interacting with the community and our talk about the values of libraries, Dana has some questions for us.
Awesome.
Hi guys, Dana Taylor here for week 5 and our interview questions. And my first question is, what do you think is the #1 marketing tool out there today?
Okay, big one.
That's a loaded question, Dana. Man, I gotta think about that one for a second. You know, I guess I would say it kind of depends on what type of marketing you're doing, because marketing is such a broad thing. So like, for instance, when we send out those mass emails, we utilize a marketing automation tool that's called Marketo. There's also some programs like it you guys might have heard of. Another one is MailChimp. Those are two of the big ones I can think of off the top of my head. But that's something that enables us to reach a lot of people. That's kind of our database for students, again, who have contacted MacU at some point, whether, you know, it was as recently as yesterday or if it was as much as, you know, 3 or 4 years ago. So that's a really imperative tool for us to use when it comes to our marketing. I also really like scheduling tools. So for instance, social media, we use something called Buffer that enables me to, you know, schedule out some posts in advance, because if you were trying to post on social media every single day without having some things scheduled, you never get anything else done. So for me, Buffer is super important because, you know, I can set aside some time, usually on a Friday afternoon, and block out a couple hours, and I can go ahead and find the pictures I want for social media, write the captions I want, and I can plan that out across platforms. And Buffer's really cool because, say you are posting the same thing to all 3 social media accounts, you just have to do it all in one little post, and it'll automatically post to all 3, which is neat. You don't have to go through and post to Facebook separately, and Twitter separately, and Instagram separately. So that's really a time saver. Another one that I would recommend to anybody, and this has no cost associated with it whatsoever, it's a program called Cascade. And it is both, there's a web version of it, and you can also get it on an app on your phone. They're super compatible, and it's basically just kind of a to-do list that you can keep for yourself. And I'm somebody who likes writing things out, and I like being able to check things off when they're done. And, you know, marketing can get so crazy sometimes, and we really can get caught up in a whirlwind. So having some sort of management tool like that, I think, is really important as well. And honestly, probably my best thing is just basic Google Docs. You know, I can write on a whim. Whether that's like my own personal writing or if it's writing for the school, it has really great connectivity. You can have it on your phone or your iPad or your computer, and whatever you write on one version will automatically update to the other version. So for me, it's even a little bit more valuable than say Microsoft Word is, just because it's so versatile. You can take it with you. You don't have to be at your computer. So if something pops into your mind, like, oh, that'd be such a good quote for this story, or oh, this is a good idea for an email, you can just jot it right there and you have it everywhere. That's probably my most indispensable tool.
Awesome. All right, and let's take this second question here.
Secondly, what has been your most pivotal career actualization to date, and why?
Oh, okay. So, career highlight, right?
There's a lot, and this is probably one of those things that I'm going to get emotional about again. I guess probably one of the biggest. One of the things I also do, and this is a cool segue, Dana, because I didn't get to talk about this before. I'm privileged to write some of our advancement letters that come out from our Office of University Advancement. So what these are, they're letters, we normally have probably about 6 of them that go out a year or so. And so they go out to donors, both who have given to MACU in the past, or maybe people who have indicated interest in donating to MACU. They go out to churches, they go out to alumni. And so what those letters do, they always tell the story of either 1 or 2 students that I get to go out and interview. We include a picture of them, excuse me. And we talk about how, how they're changing the world for Christ, or how MACU has impacted them. And it always goes back to student scholarships, which are very important. I have student loans. I receive some scholarships, but for the most part, most of us can't even dream about a college education without thinking about either loans or scholarships. So it's something that's really important for us to get out to our donors. And there was one particular letter a few months ago that I was told actually received I think it was $10,000 gift because of the story I was able to tell from that letter. And so for me, knowing that I was able to use my writing to help a student get a scholarship, to be able to have that money come to MACU so that more deserving students can come to school, that was definitely a highlight for me. There's been tons of little things. Just writing the Mid-American magazine, that's a really cool thing for me, knowing that my writing is published and then it's going out to this many thousand people, that my words could really have an impact on somebody. That is a huge thing that I don't think I'll ever, get over the thrill. I'm going into, I guess this is probably my 16th or 17th issue now, because I'm starting my 3rd year here at MACU.
Oh, wow.
And it's still just as exciting to me every time, going out and interviewing people and knowing that the stories that I'm telling and learning are going to go out to, all these subscribers of ours. So that's really a big highlight for me. But just being able to impact people with my words is the world to me.
All right, looks like we have one more student entry here. And so we're going to hear from Destiny and respond to her questions.
Hello, my name is Destiny Jackson, and I just have 2 quick questions for you. So my first question is, what made you decide not only to get your degree through MACU, but also start your career here as well?
All right.
That's an awesome question, Destiny. This is a story I will tell anybody. I honestly, probably too much, but I just love talking about this place. I went to OCCC, which is a community college here in South Oklahoma City, before I went to MACU. I went right after I got out of high school. And I was finishing up there, and I really wasn't sure where I wanted to go. Funnily enough, I actually grew up within a 3-mile radius of the MACU campus my entire life. I've always lived in the Moore and South Oklahoma City area in Oklahoma. I didn't know it was a school. We've come a really long way. We have some awesome signage now, but I never knew, driving by in my parents' car as a kid, I didn't even know there was a school out here. And so one day at OCCC, there was a guy from the admissions office. They were having a transfer fair, and his name was Nosa. And he started flagging me down. He was like, hey, come here. And he was like, are you wanting to transfer? And I was like, yeah. And so we got to talking, and he invited me out to MACU for a tour. And, from the second I stepped onto this campus, and if you guys ever have the opportunity to, I know we're doing a little bit more about trying to get our CAG students here on campus at least once a year, usually before graduation. If you ever have the opportunity to do it, I know we're a small campus, but there's just something about this place. And as soon as I stepped onto this campus, I could just feel it. It's like, okay, I belong here. And I went ahead and I did tour a couple other colleges, but the entire time, even colleges that were bigger than here, but the entire time I was just like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. It was honestly a God thing for me. And Destiny, for your follow-up question, the job was really kind of a blessing. I worked part-time at a YMCA daycare while I was in school here, so I was doing that. And then I also was able to do an internship here at the same time. And again, that was part of my degree program, but I just loved it so much. And I love being able to write. I wrote my first advancement letter, and I started writing for the magazine while I was here. And I guess I kind of saw a need to have somebody who was really a primary writer, because that wasn't really something that MacU had before. And so when my internship finished up, I was approached with the opportunity, you know, like, hey, we would really like to actually create this into a full-time position, because we really see a need here, which honestly, I guess that's kind of a career highlight there, like to know that words were so needed.
Yeah,
an entire position was made at a university just for somebody who would be marketing and writing and managing social media. That was really cool for me, but it was, you know, it was just this perfect opportunity. And I tell people this is my dream job, because, you know, I get to write for a living. I get to do what, you know, I love for a living, and I get to do it in a place that I really love and I'm really passionate about. So,
and while Whitney keeps describing it, self-describing it as writing or serving as a writer, really it's bigger than that. You're a content creator, and being a content creator is something we're trying to stress to our students. This is a definitive type of path that they can be immediately transitioning into, and that's why many of our minor tasks and courses are essentially training us to be more disciplined, to pay attention to the fundamentals, to engage and access and strengthen those critical thinking skills that help us work through problems, problem solving through words, right? Or learning what is persuasive versus what's not persuasive. If it's not persuasive, why isn't it persuasive?
And how can we make it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So what an encouragement to hear about, you know, your individual growth, and then just you know, the happy byproduct of it being tied to a MacU experience. We've got a final question from Destiny, and we'll wrap this thing up.
And then my second question is, what motivated you to start reaching out to students who have dropped out of MacU?
All right, so a constant theme, but you certainly pressed it as a theme you're excited to be a part of.
Yes, to be honest with you, it wasn't my idea. It was something that was brought up to me by a marketing contractor that we had hired. And I had never even heard of nurture campaigns before. That was not something that was a thing for me. So we met with our enrollment team, and we got to talking about the need. I guess in the terms of logistics for enrollment, they stopped working an active student at the 6-month mark. So that's why this whole thing hinges on that 6 months, because at that point they're not reaching out to those students anymore, because, you know, obviously our students are more than just a number, but at that point, when it's after 6 months and they haven't heard from anybody, they have to focus their attention and their time onto people who are more active leads, so to speak. So we kind of created that nurture program as a way to nurse that gap between, okay, there's not an enrollment counselor actively contacting the student now, but how can we still reach out to them and keep them in touch with MacU, even if it's a couple years down the line.
Whitney, thank you so much for coming in. And when I say a busy schedule, you know, she has a busy schedule. It's a busy week here on campus. It's a busy month. It's one of the busiest months of the year.
Yes.
But being able to kind of pinch it on short notice has meant a lot to this class. It means a lot to the students. Thank you so much for coming back and sharing. And it's certainly kind of pay it forward thing. It's awesome to see you growing and maturing professionally in that role here, and it'll be exciting. Maybe now our students will have that much more investment in actually opening the pages to the Mid-American when it starts to show up right at their doorsteps, rather than kind of, you know, giving it the quick glance and, you know, tossing it or archiving it. I'm sure recycling it, right?
Yes, and hey, you guys, you can always reach out to me. Garrett will give you my email address, but you know, I'm always looking for more stories, both for the Mid-American and for social media, especially for our adult students, because we really want to tell your stories. You know, everybody has an amazing story. I don't care, you know, how basic you think it is. The fact that you're in school and you're doing this, that's a really important thing. So thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you for answering these questions. This was a really cool thing for me to do, to be able to revisit, you know, a class and a program that's so dear to me. So thank you. I
can testify to this. When we had our May graduation ceremony, Whitney was out there hustling. She was pulling people left and right, getting some video testimonials from our graduates, including some of your fellow peers that you all would know. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. One final thanks to Whitney for joining us in this series. Thank you all for your timeliness, for being so quick, so flexible, which does mimic that real world experience. You all can expect those kinds of pivots as you're working in those types of professions, right, that we're training for. It's been an exciting asynchronous interview series, and good luck for those of you that are finishing out right now. That's amazing. And then for those continuing on, we'll see you guys, and then hopefully everyone will be at their respective graduations, right, in person, to walk that stage as we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Take care. I'm rooting for you.